Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of JJ Unplugged. I'm Jake, joined as always by
Jen.
And today we're diving into something real. We're talking about trauma. Of course, not as experts, but as people figuring this out together.
Yeah, I have a lot of it. No. Working through a lot. The healing journey.
Some of the things that we might be discussing today would be some childhood experiences, relationship trauma, maybe some workplace incidents, cultural, collective trauma, and also, of course, digital age and how that impacts us.
Welcome
to the JJ Unplugged show.
But yeah, let's just jump right in. And Jen, tell me about what is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word trauma?
Oh, I guess the first thing that comes to mind for me when I think of trauma is I think of something that was that severe that happened in my surroundings that had a very big impact on my nervous system. So how I react to the world now because of that incident, that would kind of be where my mind goes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If I'm thinking about trauma, the first thing that comes to mind is me climbing up a tree when I was maybe like 6-7 years old, and then stepping on a very, very rotten branch, trying to get some cherries. I still remember this very vividly. And then just literally tumbling down from a branch with the entire half a tree and spraining my ankle so bad that I think I could, if I remember, I could barely just limp back home.
You literally sparked a memory for me there on that one. I'm gonna piggyback off that. When I was young, I feel like I was under 10 years of age, but I could be completely wrong on the time. But I was young enough that I was in primary school, and where I lived in Clondalkin, there used to be a certain bridge. It was really small. They've actually renovated that one. You know, the one now where the industrial estates are for like Knoll. I used to run over that bridge, but there used to be an entrance into the train station there because the trains used to stop there. And I used to have two friends that lived in there, Shane and Fergus. They lived with their mum and dad in the house that was at the train station. Like the railway kids, total thing. And I used to run through there with my brother, run up over the bridge, over the bridge for the trains, out the other side, down. And I was chasing my brother one day, and I fell down the stairs and rolled, and I hit my ankle and actually sprained it. But I kept rolling and kept thinking, geez, I'm going to roll out onto the tracks and a train's going to get me. But I got up, because my brother was running. He'd already ran off. He didn't even see me fall. And I got up and limped out of the train station, and I was crying, and my mum was like, you're fine, you're grand. And I walked home on that ankle from the train station, which would be another 10-15 minutes maybe down the road to Parmistown Woods. And I was like, this is fine. But I was in so much pain, and it was this thing I remember always brought me back to. My mum doesn't believe me. She doesn't realise that I'm really injured here. Yeah. She thinks I'm just being a kid. I went asleep, and I woke up in the middle of the night. My mum and dad calling me down, and they were like, right, let's go to the hospital, because my ankle was like the size of a golf ball. It was or a tennis ball even. It was so big. And I went to the hospital, and they were like, yeah, it's a sprain. I had to get an x-ray. I remember being traumatized by what an x-ray was, because they go behind that little wall. And the whole time in my head I was crying. I kept moving, and I was like, where's my mum? And then they're like, yeah, this is safe. But then they run away when they're going to do something. And I'm like, if it's safe, why are you running behind that wall?
Yeah.
And then I had to get crutches, and I got time off school, and it was like a whole thing. But I remember just thinking, like, I could have died. Oh my God, my mom didn't believe me. And I grew up with that. Like, and now I don't like train stations, and I always wonder why. And I've just made that connection. That's so funny.
Isn't it funny that we just started talking about physical trauma, but how physical trauma affects us also mentally?
Right. Because the body keeps score, right? The mind can always block stuff off. It's like it can put all these things into little rooms, but the body keeps the score of whatever that thing is. So you get uncomfortable, and you're like, why am I uncomfortable? Because your brain is trying to tell you, this is fine. But your body is like, no, this isn't okay. This isn't safe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Actually, this also makes a lot of sense, because There was a very, very long time where I just wouldn't even go near a tree. I really enjoyed climbing trees. But then after that incident, I was like, oof, what if there is a branch that again is going to make me fall down, and hurt myself? Oh, it's so funny. I actually, up until this moment, I never really put those things together.
Yeah, no, I totally didn't think of it. Like, I always get really anxious going to train stations. And I always feel like, oh, I'm going to miss the train or I'm going to be late. And I thought it was just like an anxiety around being late. But the actual train station itself, I always need to know where I am, which side of the platform I have to be on. And going over that bridge always gives me anxiety. And I literally just made that connection because whenever I get the train now, it's from Naas, from my friends, into the office. And yeah, that makes so much sense. And I walk down the stairs holding on, like gripping to the side of it, like being like, oh, you're safe. And it's always replaying in the back of your mind. That's so wild. I haven't thought of that in such a long time.
That's so funny. Yeah, that's, well, funny in a way.
Not funny, haha. Funny, weird.
Exactly. What other, I'm trying to think, is there another childhood experience that still has stayed with me up until this moment?
I mean, bullying is a big one, I guess. For me, anyway. I definitely received a fair share of bullying when I was little.
Yeah.
And that definitely stuck with me. Like school, I loved school, but I just didn't like people because I didn't know how to take them, whether they were going to be nice to me or they were going to be absolutely awful, but come in being nice first and then turn out to be awful. That was something that was very much realised at a young age. If people come in and be nice until it doesn't work in their favour or something, and then they just get really nasty really quick, and you're like, whoa, kind of false sense of security.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which carries into adulthood life, where you're like in the workplace and somebody might be nice to you and then they end up being a dickhead to you, and you're like, oh God. You know?
That is so true. And actually now when I think about it, yes, I was bullied as well. Also, I was always the fat kid in the school. So for me, bullying was kind of second nature. Not bullying, but being bullied. Because everybody felt like they were against me. But also, now looking back, I was just very, very emotional. So even if you looked at me wrong, I probably started crying. And I cried a lot in school. But yeah, the funny thing is, when I think I turned 15, 16, I think it was 15, when I understood, you know what? How does it feel to be a bully? Let me become the bully, because that is the way how I thought that I could protect myself.
Yeah, take control of the situation, like.
Yeah, exactly. And that was very, very quick how I found which people actually wanted to be friends because of me as a person, or whoever wanted to just be friends because they needed something.
Yeah.
And there were so many kids in school that just basically wanted to be friends because I had a computer. I was one of the rare people who had, like, rare families who had a computer.
Mm-hmm.
At that time. I still remember it was, I don't think Windows was out even at that time. It was like DOS days.
Wow.
So that was not the black screen. It was the blue screen. What was it called? Oh, Norton.
Yeah, Norton.
Yeah.
I had that.
And everybody would just be my friend so that they could come over after school, play some games, because, nobody else had that. And I thought, oh my God, this is so cool. Everybody wants to, come over. And then kind of growing older, I understood this isn't really friendship. Whenever you come over and you just sit there playing games and we don't really do anything together.
Yeah.
And I had this friend for the longest time. What was it, like 7-8 years or something?
Mm-hmm.
But they were always coming over just to play some video games, and we weren't really doing anything as friends. It was more like I'm doing my own stuff and they were, just sitting at the computer and playing games, which came to a point where whenever I got my very first pay, I was still a child. I was like, 15, 16, I think, at that time. But whenever I earned my kind of bigger money, I immediately bought one thing, a camera, because I love taking pictures. And then the other thing, I bought a PlayStation 2
Mm-hmm.
only because I knew, oh, then these people are going to come over and they'll want to just like be in my vicinity. How sad is that?
I don't know. It's not sad. It's almost like survival when you're that age, you know? I know for me, like, I didn't know who I even now in my 30s, I'm like, do I even know who I really am? I'm still figuring that bit out. But as a teenager, like, I hung around with people in my estate because that was the only kind of area that I could have friends, right? If I left that estate, it was like a big, long industrial estate road, like, where you're like, you're going to be murdered. So I had to kind of stay around a certain area, and I had, well, I say friends, the term friends very loosely, where like if you were in a group of maybe 3 or 4 girls, maybe one of them was nice to you when you're on your own, but then when other people were around, they completely changed their character, they changed their energy, and they kind of teamed up with the other people to bully you or really go in on you as a person. And I found that a lot. Like, I moved from like road to road in my estate because my estate was so big. I moved around from road to road and had a friend on like every single different road of the estate at one point, and I just moved on from person to person and never ever stuck around too long at a certain point. Typical air sign. And it kind of taught me that like I can't trust people because I never got like a genuine energy from people almost. And I'd stay around with people when I was young enough that like I'd let them bully me, and I'd sit there and take it. And like I look back and there's memories where I'd be like in a house with a few girls, and one of them just always seemed to go in on me for some reason. I don't know, to this day I don't know why. And she used to bully me and slag me, and the other girls would sit there laughing, and I'd just be crying, and I'd like walk down the stairs. It actually brought a memory up for me a while ago where I thought about this, where I was in the house and they were slagging me, and I think at one point I might have went out of the room to go downstairs or something like that, and her elder brother, who was a teenager at that point, was like, oh, that fucking bitch is upstairs crying, or that stupid little bitch, or something like, and I was only a kid, you know, but I heard him say that, and it almost kind of invalidated my feelings, because then I was like, oh, am I being too dramatic? And I started to like dampen my emotions and hide them then, where I was like, well, you're not going to see me be upset, I'm not going to show you that I'm upset, I'm just going to bury it.
Yeah. And
like,
how
you'll
long?
never know. Yeah.
Right? And how long do you keep it buried?
Oh God, like probably up until I hit 30. And then I started doing somatics to release a lot of energy, a lot of anger. I always wondered, like, people would say to me like, oh, there's so much anger inside. And I was like, no, I'm not really angry. I'm like, so like a passing nod. No, I'm fine, with my voice like up here. But I just was afraid to show anger because I thought if I was angry, I'd be punished for being angry. So I just kept that whole people pleasery energy of being like, oh, I'll do as much as I can and everybody will like me, and then there'll never be a problem and no one will slag me. And
then how long can you be a people pleaser until you understand that, am I actually pleasing people? Are they pleased with what I'm doing?
Oh yeah, no, like nobody, like everybody isn't gonna like you. Everybody isn't going to be your friend, and that's a really hard lesson I think we need to learn very young in life. I think it's almost like it's something I feel like parents should teach their kids at a young age. I wish, I don't even know to this day, I can't recall it in my mind of my mum and dad ever saying it to me, but they're both Virgos, so maybe they did and I just blocked it out, where they're like, nobody's going to, like, not everybody's going to like you. But yeah, like, I was met with 2 different energies. Like, I was met with my mom being very empathetic, very caring, very nurturing, and then my dad being like really, really solid and really like, stand up for yourself and don't be minding that, you know, this kind of thing. But he would also be very emotional, like, you know, so it will confuse you. You just don't know what way to take things. It almost gets in my head then of like, one day when I'm a parent, hopefully, you know, what kind of way I lean in with my kids, or what's the right way. We try to teach our kids, like every generation, it's where like they're trying to teach it better. They're trying to do what their parents didn't do for them, or give them what they didn't have, you know?
Yeah, that's so true. And then now if I look back at my parents and how they were kind of on my side or not on my side, to this day I still remember when, what was it? I think it was grade 9. So that would be, what year is that even?
2nd or 3rd year, is it? Like if, or like,
So if there are 12 grades in school, 10 to 12 being high school, the 9 was 1 year right before high school.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that would be like, is high school like secondary school?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's like 6th class here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I basically remember that everybody needed to go to school with their parents, go to the school director, so that some of the teachers would be sitting there with the director and my parents and just kind of say, what are some of the things that Jake needs to improve, And I still remember to this day that my worst teacher that I thought was the worst one was the history teacher, because everybody loved him. I did not. I couldn't understand what he was saying. He was lisping. He was also very phlegmy when he was talking, and I just could not concentrate at all in class. And he made us read these absolutely huge paragraphs in class from the history book. I was like, why do I need to sit here and just waste my time reading things? Anyway, he was there in my principal, aka school director. We call them school directors. It's the school principal, right? Principal's office. And he was just kind of trying to explain to my parents how bad I am in class, how I can't concentrate, how I'm not paying attention. Now, I have a label for that. I know what was wrong. But my mom was sitting there listening, and she said, well, what can you do? Maybe you should speak more clearly. That shut up the teacher for good. I feel like from that moment, I was immediately in his bad books.
Yeah, that's it. Like death's door.
Yep. And my mom never really told me like you should try harder or maybe like try to find some alternative ways. It was more like, well, I'm on your side. You're doing the most, this is fine, but like, was it fine?
We stand that energy.
and then on the flip side, my dad was always nothing was ever good enough. Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I remember this was a different thing where what was it? I had to write something in my notebook, like homework, but it had to be written, first of all, in cursive. Mm-hmm. Of course, no computers really existed at that time. And it needed to be written without any mistakes.
Okay.
And I had to write the same 3-4 pages like 5 times. I want to say 5 times because I gave up at one point.
Yeah.
And I think my dad gave up as well. But like, as soon as there was one little crossed letter or stricken out letter, everything needed to be redone. So yeah. But funny, because he also never was emotionally not managed, but he couldn't really manage his own emotions well.
So he's quite dysregulated, like.
Exactly. That's the word I was looking for. Because as soon as his favorite, this is giving autistic, but as soon as his favorite scissors went missing, because they were not as small as nail scissors, the tiny ones. They were like in between. They were so comfortable because for a child, it's a good size. But he always used them to either cut his beard or something. But I would always put them somewhere else because, I was using them. And oh my God, every single time, I feel like this was at least once every 2 weeks, he would make this huge scene where everyone's trying to like kick me out of this household. Nobody can put things back where they belong.
Oh my God.
And imagine growing up
with this. This feels relatable. It's almost like, I don't know whether you've ever seen that video of the old man where he's like, where's me fucking soup? Mm-hmm. And the son's like, it's all right. No, you can't have anything in this house. Like, my dad goes on like that. We found that video one day and we showed it. Me and my mom showed it to my dad and we all laughed and we're like, that's you. You're the where's my soup man. But yeah, like, I get that, the whole dysregulation piece. Like, it definitely would have been the case where my dad would be very reactive as well growing up, like, he's the best person in the world and I love him to bits. But my nervous system is definitely formulated off of him and his trauma and his reactiveness. you know, and if things were moved, he would freak out. And it's the same now as an adult, like, because I've moved back home and I know I need to go in and do all that inner child work, and I'm trudging through it, you know, bit by bit. But yeah, it's intriguing when you get to a certain point in your adulthood where you've regulated enough to kind of see, oh, this is an odd behavior, or this isn't normal. Has this always been the case? And I just only notice it now? It's like you've come out of like stars in their eyes and you're about to sing on stage and you're like, tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be traumatized.
Yeah.
It's crazy, like.
But also going back to what will we be passing on to our new generations, right? So I'm very sure that I probably don't really want kids, only because there's a lot of things that I don't really want to pass down. And the funny thing is, you either want to or not, you as a parent will inevitably pass down some of the trauma that you haven't fixed yourself, that probably has traveled through multiple generations.
For sure. Yeah, I was looking up astrology charts there the last couple of months, and I made the discovery that me, my mom, and her mom are all the exact same moon sign. We're all Capricorn moons. And I was like, wow. Motherfucker. I was like, this is where that comes from. Like, there's a generational trauma piece there going back. And there's definitely like stubborn as hell energy that I have, that I got from my mom and she got from her mom. And I made a comment the other day even to my mom, and I was like, my nanny's name was Patricia. That's my middle name. That's where I got it from. And I was like, oh, Nanny Pat. Yeah, like she was definitely well stubborn. And I could see my mom trying to calculate in her head of, was she stubborn? Because she was so traumatized by her, she couldn't make the decision. And I was like, yes, she was. Stop that. Of course that woman was stubborn. And she was like, okay, yeah. And she knew where I was going with it. And I was like, you have it, I have it. Now I know where I get that from, where I'm like digging my heels in. I'm not giving in with things, or, you know, just icing people out, like really cold energy. I'm like, oh, that's a generational thing. Thanks so much for that. So I'm working through all of that the past several years to heal that and kind of help myself to be a little bit more open. And having having a partner that's a Cancer is very much, it's like, how do I put this? It's like a reward, but it's also very much a challenge at the same time, because if we have a disagreement or conflict, my initial reaction to conflict is to shut down and to just ice people out, because I just can't deal with conflict. Don't know if that's a Libra thing, or it's a Capricorn moon, or it's a trauma thing. It could be a multitude of things there. But I'll just ice people out because I'm like, oh, we've had a fight, we're breaking up now? Good, okay. And that's where my brain goes. It goes into shutdown. Whereas he will come over and he'll change the energy straight away and he'll make me feel safe. And I'm still in my head going, no, it's fine. It's fine. It doesn't matter. But I know he's really trying to be like, okay, it's just a disagreement. It's not the end of the world. But it's the end of the world in my head. Because I didn't grow up with conflict. Like, my mum and dad didn't fight in front of us. That never happened. Nobody threw anything. Nobody hit anybody.
Okay.
It didn't happen. What we did do in my house was a lot of talking.
Well, that's good. Sure, you might have been talking a lot, but the fact that you didn't really have to look at or see your parents
throw furniture at each other, like glasses
exactly
across the room, or there was a lot of love and adoration. Like, my mom had, this is actually a really funny thing. It's kind of like old school that because my dad was like the breadwinner, he would come in or whatever. Everything was around my dad. Everything was around regulating his energy, right? So like, my mom was like domestic goddess, housewife, Virgo energy, clean. Everything was spotless. All the furniture hoovered, clean, floors, nothing was out of place. Show house energy. And my dad would come home, and like, when she was making food, like, everyone was sitting down at the table. We shared dinner at the table every night. It was a thing. We'd sit around, we'd talk, we'd have jokes. We'd always have music on. Music was always playing. And my dad always got dinner first. She would always put his food in front of him first, because he's the bread winner, you know, he's the provider. He comes first. And if there was a bad vibe, as in like he came home and he was pissed off, everybody and their energy just froze, because we all had to appease his energy. We all followed suit, like, to my mom, to make sure he was okay. Like if he was off, it was like, oh shit, you know?
Yeah. Which kind of brings us into the second topic about relationship trauma. And we can
Expert level.
I think just looking back at our parents can tell us so much how we see relationships. So you kind of gave me that example where you always had music, if everything was
totally
how your dad was feeling, the rest of the family needed to adjust.
Yeah.
Funny story about, not even a story, just
A fact.
a fact. When I was growing up, there could never be music because it was too loud and it was too distracting.
And your mom's a music teacher?
My mom's a music teacher, exactly, and
What?
she couldn't really practice the piano, or she couldn't really practice for her classes, for school, or for kindergarten, or whatever. She was also doing a course in organ playing.
Okay.
So basically, she had to practice somewhere outside of home, only because as soon as she was practicing, she could spend maximum like 30 minutes
Yeah.
on a weekend, because otherwise it was way too much racket and you're trying to get me out of the house, all of that stuff.
Victim energy.
Exactly. Yeah. But no, nobody was to blame when my dad was always watching TV to until 1 a.m. every single day, very loudly, and usually falling asleep. Now remember that we had one bedroom shared between all three of us.
Okay.
And then there was a workroom, which was like a living room / workroom. So, yeah.
Back in for Latvia.
Well, that's actually normal. Like a 2-room, not 2-bed, but 2-room apartment
That sounds
is normal.
a bit horrific. Like when you think about that now, like if you tried to put 2 adults with their kid in one room now, like what kind of... I mean, back then, obviously, it was like we just made do with what we had. We had to. We didn't have a choice. There'd be some kicking up fuss now, wouldn't there?
Yeah, that's...
Co-sleeping.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I mean, on a serious level, without getting TMI, how much of an actual, like an intimate relationship could your parents have if you're in the room?
I don't think they really had any
But
intimate
that's what I'm
relationship.
saying, right? So it was like non-existent. So it's like, I know intimacy is like a really big part of a relationship. It's really important, but like, it's not the whole thing, but
Yeah.
it's quite important. So like, if that's not happening, it's like, oh, yikes.
Yeah. No, exactly. And it makes a lot of sense, you know? So just kind of looking back at their relationship, I knew some of the things that I definitely don't want to continue doing.
Yeah.
And there can be like 2 different routes or roads that one can take, like a child can take. Either they will become like one of their parents, or like both of their parents, or the opposite, like the way I went, where I want to be the complete opposite, and I don't really want to be seen as one of my parents, because I actually didn't really think that they were really great, you know, relationship wise.
Yeah, I hear that. And I think to even just kind of go in on what you said there about being like one parent, 2 parents, or none, I kind of sit with this every now and then and think to myself, do I resemble one specific parent more than another? I'm a lot like my dad. Definitely. I've seen a lot of traits there. Like, he's a really intelligent person. He's really giving. He's very much self-sacrificing almost. And I know that's where I got that from, but also my mum. But I definitely have a lot of my mum there too, you know. And the fact that we have the same moon sign, I'm like, thanks for that, generational trauma. Love it. But she also led me into holistic stuff. She's the one that led me to The Secret when I was like 16. And it would have been around the time where a lot of my kind of darker emotions were kind of bubbling, because I was trying to figure out who I was. I was in my little rocker phase. And yeah, she kind of stirred me towards holistic stuff, as well as her sister, my auntie. Like, she was really good in that. She was really good at showing you the doorway. So I'm definitely convinced to this point that I'm very much like both of my parents, but there's a lot of me now with the work I've been doing in the past few years that I'm like, this isn't either of them, this is me, this is my version, you know. So there's a lot, big amalgamation going on there.
Yeah, I think the best thing that I took from my mom that I'm also trying to just keep in all of my relationships is just showing affection.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because my dad would never hug me, and if he ever did, then it was, you know, that super quick slap on the back. Yeah.
Hugging a wall.
That type of a hug. And there was a moment, and I think I still have some pictures where I'm hugging my cousin, and it's basically like 5 meters between our bodies, and only our shoulders and arms are touching, you know, kind that type of a hug.
This is uncomfortable. Make it stop. Yeah.
Exactly. But then looking back, my mom would always hug me as a child. We would always, you know, give kisses to each other whenever we were saying goodbye or good night or whatever, you know. And that is something that I really enjoyed, and that always made me feel good. And that's something that I'm taking or have taken into all of my relationships. Some people are very strongly against it, and those relationships didn't really last long. And then now my husband is basically just really loving some of the hugs, you know, just arm rubs or shoulder rubs or whatever, and
any
just,
form of intimacy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to me, that just feels right at home, and it feels very comfortable. It feels safe.
Yeah, but I mean, if you've gone through a lot of shit relationships, it can take you a long time to get to that place where you feel safe in a relationship. Like, I mean, I'm 2 years in mine now, and this is the first healthy relationship I can say I've been in, and I've had several. You've seen them.
I definitely have, and I can't even imagine that it's already been 2 years. And the funny thing is, I still haven't met him.
I know. He hasn't met a lot of people, though. He's a Cancer. You know what you guys are like. But he's so good, you know. He, like, when he would have been showing me safe, I suppose, tendencies at the start of the relationship, my ego the whole time, based on the trauma I'd had before that, was like, oh, what's he doing this for? What's his end game? What's he looking for from me? You know, oh, he's going to do this. And I was always looking for an end goal. And his consistency triggered the shit out of my nervous system, because I was so used to being like, oh, well, this time frame will pass and then they'll cheat. This time frame will pass and then they'll get bored of me, you know, whereas we dated for like 90 days before we actually became a couple. And I was like, is this a test? Yeah, it was a test. He was checking the whole time to see if I remained consistent, because people can lie, obviously. They can fake affection, they can fake emotion, whatever. And eventually that mask will slip and you'll see that. So I think I don't know whether that's a Cancerian thing where you're like, I'm waiting till your mask falls, you know?
I don't think so. It could be.
Is it
like,
a trauma thing? It's probably a trauma thing.
It's a trauma thing, only because, just speaking from my previous experience with some of the toxic relationships that I've been in, where, you know, like everything's going great, but then they're just showing up so that whenever you're together, they're showing up like they really care for you, and you're the only person for them. But then whatever's happening in the background when they leave the house and when they're alone, like I was cheated by one person, I don't even know, like I know about 5 times.
It's just
That's
crazy.
How many I know about, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think the funny thing for me is that, like, the answers and the information always find their way to you. Like, I had people reach out to me on different social medias that they made fake like Facebook profiles, or like on Bebo or whatever the frick it was back then. Like, they'd make like fake profiles to tell me that my partner at the time was cheating, and I'm like, dude, what the like, you know, say it with your chest. Why are you making a fake profile? But there was like divine guidance coming in there, or divine protection coming in, where people were like, we need to tell you you're being cheated on. And it just happened so often, and I was just in the same cycle for so long with people, that I think with this relationship, when this just came out of nowhere, and it was a real serendipity kind of thing, where it was like, oh, I'm out with a friend and I just run into this man that I follow on social media, and we maybe chatted once or twice, like nothing flirtatious, just general chat, like chit chat, and then I run into like my future partner in the middle of the tree arena, and I'm like, what? And when I tell people the story, they're like, that sounds like a movie, and I'm like, yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it?
No, it
I
does.
met them on Tinder. They're my husband now. You know, like I had those relationships, and I have friends that met people on dating apps, and they worked out, and they're married to them now, and it's great, you know. But I just always seen in my head where I'd meet my partner, and it would be a normal kind of setting outside of technology. So I'm actually really happy that we met in that way, even though it started with technology in a way, but you couldn't have seen like, you're going to run into someone in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. No, that's so true. Also, I've had so many poor experiences with all of the dating apps that...
Triggered.
The funny thing is, for where I was living, because I was living in a very small city, you know, kind of like a town, there was nothing really where you could just run into another person. And also those people, they weren't great that you could run into.
Yeah.
So yeah, I met my husband on Tinder back when
it was decent.
when you didn't have to pay for it, when it didn't have Tinder Gold and stuff. So that's like...
It wasn't so bad back then. It wasn't actually a bad app, whereas now it's like it's giving toxic.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely. And the thing is, I was at that point, and this is some trauma talking at that point, right? Because I was at a point where people had just wasted my time. I had gone either on a date and then they ghost you, or you text for like a week and then they ghost you. So whenever my husband replied, we kind of talked for about a week or even a couple of days, and I immediately said, you know what, either we meet up, like I really want to meet you, preferably this week. It was like a week later, you know.
Yeah.
And otherwise we're just wasting time, because I want to make sure that, you know, if we see each other in real life, can we hold a conversation? And of course, because of all that past baggage, he was extremely scared, because nobody had ever wanted to like immediately meet up. And I completely understand, you know, like, is he trying to kill me or what is happening, you know? But he agreed, thank goodness. And then, of course, I did my scare the shit out of the other person on our first like actual date, you know, talking about my plans. So I definitely want to have a house, move in very quickly, and ideally also want to get married. You know, all of the things that nobody ever says on the first date. But I was at that point where I was like,
cut to the chase.
You know what? Like, I don't want to waste any time. So I'm thankful for that trauma that I experienced, where I actually found somebody who could be on my level, where even though they were scared, they would be willing to try and see where it goes. Yeah. That was the most important thing. So there's some positive things about being traumatized.
Do you know, as much as it's been a roller coaster, I think to myself, like, I've gotten into the mindset now of things didn't happen to me, they happened for me. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's the way I like to look at things now. Like, whenever something's happening, I'm like, what is the lesson here for me? What is happening for me in this scenario? Because everything is just a storyline. That's all it is. It's just another storyline playing out every time. You know, don't get too caught up in the Matrix. Mm-hmm. It's just a story, like. But yeah, we love it. We live for our trauma.
Well, let's maybe talk a little bit about workplace incidents.
Oh, my fave.
And we're not going to name any specific workplaces.
Okay.
But I feel like there has been definitely some incidents. The first one that comes to my mind that really affected me was when I was working in an office. I had this coworker who was really friendly, you know, just really engaged, and we kind of hit it off immediately, just as, you know, on a friendly level. And we were having like really great conversations and interested in very similar topics. And then they were having a housewarming party. Mm-hmm. And now when I look back at it, I remember that they said, oh yeah, like, I'm having a housewarming party. And instead of them directly asking me and inviting me, I said, oh, that's so awesome. Would I be able to come? First mistake. Never ask.
Inviting yourself along.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a no-no.
Now I know that if you're not invited directly, they don't want you there, right?
Yeah.
But at that point I was like, oh my god, this feels special. This feels like finally I found like a
safe friend.
Yeah, exactly. And then I still remember to this day that the party was okay. And then after like 2 days, I think it was the Monday, I receive a message and they say, I think we should keep this relationship extremely professional, and I really don't essentially don't vibe with you. And
wow, harsh.
Immediately I texted my plus one and asked, was there anything bad that I did? Immediately trying to find some
reasoning as
reason
to why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, not at all. So that made me understand, probably traumatized me a little bit, where even if it looks like you're really hitting it off with some people, they just don't really care about you. And it's just so hard. From that moment, it was so hard for me to open up and allow others to get closer to me, because in the past I was hurt. And then I was trying to open up, just let people in. Yeah. And then this happens again. And you want to protect yourself?
Took me a minute to get in there, didn't it? But I got in there. Persistence is key. I made friends in like every job I've had. I'm trying to think if there was any kind of... I definitely always found the people that had the most trauma. That's like my secret talent for some reason, is I definitely make friends with people that have like a high level of trauma. I remember I worked in this job and I made friends with this guy. And he seemed okay and like gay, obviously, fag hag. And I was like, cool, yeah, like have drinks together, whatever. And he like invited me out for drinks in kind of the area I was living with my partner at the time, out in kind of Santry. And he was very like, not that he was protective of me, my partner at the time. He just was always like, you have a knack for making friends with people that are probably not the best for you, so just be careful. And I went out to have drinks with him and his friend, and like we got there and he was like straight into like having tequila shots, and it was just chaos. He was just such a chaotic person, and at the time that's obviously where my energy was, so I called that in and I had to sit with that after, right? Because at the time I was like, what the hell is happening? But like he was like falling all over the place, and he was like really badly drunk, and like I remember thinking like, geez, I can't drink with this person because I'm not safe then. Like who's gonna actually be the person that protects? Is it me? Am I the person? It's me. I'm the one. And like he came back to the house after the apartment that night, and he was like falling over and like broke our clothes horse. And I remember my partner at the time waking up the next day and seeing that, and he was literally like, oh my god, like what happened? And he like went into the bathroom, got sick and everything, and then like ended up leaving the house at some stage during the apartment at some stage during the night. Like he was that drunk, he got sick, whatever, broke the clothes horse, left, and the door was like open. And then like me and my partner the next day woke up and we're like, what the hell? Like, but he was just really chaotic, and that was the kind of energy I called in at the time. And then like work was really awkward with him afterwards, because I was like, I don't know how to kind of be with you, but he kind of got really standoffish then because he'd gotten so drunk, and I don't know whether he expected me to mind him. Like it was wild, and I definitely called that energy in at the time because I was so dysregulated.
But also thinking back, it's giving fixer vibes.
Oh god, yeah, savior energy.
And I'm
Mother Teresa.
I'm definitely a fixer. Like
same.
Every person that I've ever wanted to be close with, I'm always like, how
can I help you?
How can I fix you? You're broken.
We're on the level of together. How do we fix it? Yeah. No, I know. And that's something that that's a constant message that I get echoed, even through my coach. She's always saying it. She's like, you can't save anybody. Like, stop trying to fix people. I'm just like, okay, mom, thanks.
But it's just such a nice achievement. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but whenever I see somebody who's very broken, and then I kind of help them. Maybe I don't, but whatever. I think I help them, and they succeed in life, or they just kind of they are no longer that traumatized, that broken. I immediately feel such a great sense of accomplishment. But the funny thing is, if I used to find very, very broken people, and I wanted to create relationships with them, only because, then you're closer to them, you're spending more time with them, and you can fix them better. How just stupid is that? But also, as soon as they're fixed, this is boring. Let me grab another project now.
This isn't dysregulated enough for my nervous system. Sorry, next.
Yep.
Like a conveyor belt of traumatized individuals.
Yeah, exactly.
Next on the list. Yeah, no, I get that. And I definitely go into savior mode, and I've done it a lot over the years. And I feel like that in itself can probably be like a weird trauma response where you're like, oh, I don't want people to suffer and I don't want them to feel bad, because I know what it's like to feel sad, to feel bad, or to feel like an outcast, or to feel some kind of way. And you don't want other people to feel like it. But somebody told me this there recently, and I really had to sit with myself after it, where I might have been trying to save somebody in my life. And she said, yeah, but when you take that from them, like, that's you taking their power in a sense. Like, they have to help themselves. And even if you did help them with one thing, they still are going to repeat cycles unless they help themselves, they fix themselves. The only way out is through. Right? So if you fix it for them, let's say, you're taking that from them. You're taking that empowerment. You're taking that struggle. You're taking their suffering away. And they have to go through that. Because you've gone through yours. No one saved you. No one's coming to fix it. No one saved you. You did all that yourself. And it's like, you can't do that for other people. And I was like, wow, my ego needs to be checked. But I did sit with that. And I was like, okay. And I'm more inclined to step back now when people are suffering. It doesn't make me uncomfortable as much anymore. I'm actually like, oh, okay. Because I realize that they're not suffering because of me. Mm-hmm. They're suffering because they're human.
Yeah.
To suffer is actually to live.
Yeah, no, exactly. Which means we can probably talk about our last topic.
Yeah. Hit me with it.
Which is, let's discuss some digital age trauma. And I feel like there's a lot there, especially looking back.
Where does it start? LimeWire was the start of it for me,
Kazaa.
Downloading. We had to fight in our household to get a computer. I remember that was like early 2000s. And me and my brother at the time were like obviously teenagers, 2.5 year gap between us. And we were in our rocker phase together. And we were like, Dad, can we get a computer? And it was like, no, we're not getting that shite in this house. But it's like the parents that are like, no, we're not getting the kitten or the dog. And they're the ones sitting in the corner with it. It's always the dad that doesn't want it that loves it. Or the dad that doesn't want you to have kids and loves his grandchild. And all the videos are him smiling with the kid. And you're like, what the fuck? But yeah, he literally put up a fight and it didn't last long. And then he got a monitor into the house. And we were all like, oh my God. And you had to do some sort of thing where you disconnect the landline to put on the monitor. It's good. But yeah, we got that, and then we got LimeWire on it and Norton, and you'd be like downloading music onto your iPod or an MP3 player at the time before iPods were even a thing. I had a little pink one, or like a big block one at one point, a big grey block one.
Oh, the actual iPod.
iPods, yeah, the big giant ones before they made the iPod Nano. Remember the big huge ones that they were like that thick?
Yeah, well, you were rich then.
Oh my God, yeah. We were in the boom. We were living our best life. My mum and dad remortgaged the house and we went on holidays like 5 times in 18 months because my dad just kept running away from his trauma and we ran with him. At the time, I was like, cool, I'm going to Spain and getting a micro scooter. But now I look back and I'm like, I was so tired.
Yeah.
But LimeWire was the start, and you'd be like downloading what you thought was maybe an audio file, which turned out to be some crazy type of porn, and you're like, oh, I'm just downloading all these viruses onto this brand new computer.
That's very true. Like, my first downloading started, and the funny thing is also just what happened now was immediately digital age trauma, thinking, okay, right, let's move the mouse on our computers so that it doesn't go to sleep, otherwise the recording might stop, which is very funny.
It's going.
And immediately thinking about it. But my first application that I used for downloading, I think it was DC++. So that they had these it was very old looking. You had to join these very specific rooms where you couldn't really get access to because you had to like have these ratios of how many movies or songs have you shared with other people. And so it was immediately this trying to climb a hierarchy in an app so that you could get better access to better channels or rooms where you could get more movies, more songs or albums or newer ones.
What was the first kind of social media platform that you joined that you can recall? Were you a MySpace person?
I registered on it. That's like modern. To me, that's modern age. I think the very first one was Mirk or IRC, but like the app was called Mirk MIRC, where it was these chat rooms.
Yeah.
Where basically you would join a random chat room and then chat with people that you had no idea who they were because that you could only see their nicknames and never their faces.
God, that's trauma.
It was literally just
serial
text.
killers.
It was literally text, and it was just the way how you chatted with people that you didn't know, and it was so exciting and exhilarating because you never knew who was on the other side, and you never actually thought of
serial killers.
Maybe there's a serial killer. Maybe there's like a 60-year-old grandpa just, petting his dog.
Jesus. So my first downloads on social media would have been Bebo. And yeah, nothing was before Bebo, right? That was like the first big kind of platform for social where you had your like top 16.
It wasn't
an MSN, which was Messenger.
Yeah, MSN Messenger was great. That was actually where a complete randomer just pinged me out of the blue and started talking to me, and that was whenever I had my very first intercourse in the woods in a freaking car. So, yeah, I don't even remember how old was I, 14?
I had the biggest crush on this one guy when I was young. I was about 14, 15 at the time. And I had the biggest crush on this guy, Andy. Or Andrew, whatever. But it was Andy. And I can't even remember how I came to add him on MSN. I think my friends, the groups that I was in, where they were all assholes anyway, they were friends with him. And then I added him, and I used to sit up on evening and be on camera. You'd be on camera, on mute, just like there looking at each other, and he'd be sitting there talking to me and just looking at me on camera. And my dad would come in and my brother would be like, "What's that perv doing? Where's his hands?" And I'd be like, "Oh my God, that's so cool, stop. He needs to fall in love with me."
That's so funny. I never had Bebo. I never heard of Bebo before coming to Ireland.
Okay.
For me, there was Stripe.com, which is a Latvian social network.
Okay.
And then what else was there? There was also Face.lv, which sounds similar to Bebo, to be honest, where you had these, you uploaded pictures, and you always wanted to have your best looking pictures. You could upload, I think, up to 5 or 7 or something.
Okay.
And then you could also, other people could spend money by sending a paid text message to give you 10 points, 10-point rating, that if your picture was ever in number 1 spot, then you were basically winning in social media. And I remember that's when I really started to learn how to use Photoshop to essentially just fake my online persona. And it took so long to actually get over it, because I remember until like 5 years ago, every single picture that I posted online always had to be manipulated, edited, smoothed out, all the pimples removed. You just had to look so good. Even though, I don't think I'm a model in no way, but just trying to fake that appearance. And then if you didn't get enough likes or if you didn't get enough points, then you would just start to feel miserable and you would immediately delete your pictures. Or
Yeah.
I even deleted my profile at one point just so that I can create a new username and then start all over. But that was more successful.
Reinvent yourself. I
It
love
was just like, and only in the last, I want to say 5 years after hitting 31, I believe, I just stopped editing my photos
That's good.
because
That's
it
a nice
really,
step.
yeah, it just really felt like, this is fine. This is who I am. But it took me, basically, I had to delete my Facebook, Instagram. I deleted everything. I really did like a full
Sweep.
year's detox
Yeah.
from all social media until I got over that expectation where, you need to look a certain way.
Yeah. I hear that. I obviously have gone through my own detox, doing a lot of the somatics work and holistic work in general, I guess, over the past couple of years. And that was something for me. I realized when I was putting pictures up, I was born of that era where, everything was based on how you looked. So I didn't really edit my photos because I didn't know how to. I wasn't that techie. Like, even on Instagram, it's like maybe like a little filter here or there, but like I never edit my face, like my nose or anything like that, or my body. I never had any of that kind of stuff. But I definitely did lean into taking pictures where it was about my body. And it was kind of getting likes based on how my body looked. That was something that I kind of went through for years and decided when I kind of caught into that energy in the last year, oh wow, like what validation am I looking for here? And I'm not giving myself that validation internally. I'm looking for that externally.
Yeah.
And there was like a whole wound around that of like, oh, I'm ugly and I need validation for that. So then I was like, holy shit. And I had like a moment where I deleted archived all of my pictures and completely got rid of all that content and realized like people will like me for me now, not for my body, which is what I had been putting out there for years. Since I'd started on social media when I was young, it was all about how I look, how pretty my face is.
Oh, yeah.
Do my eyes look nice enough in this picture? Do my lips look good? Like it's crazy.
Funny and maybe a little controversial thought. I actually think TikTok has improved how we perceive ourselves, only because if I scroll through my feed, I don't actually see anything edited. It's really raw, and especially during COVID times, people were literally just like double chinning and taking videos, sleeping and talking about stuff, whatever they wanted to talk. And it just really, I feel like it really reset the visual expectations.
Yeah. Definitely. Like I love how real people are on that app. You really do find a lot of like, you can go in there and you can find educational videos. You can find humorous videos. You can find really depressing videos. Depends what level of talk you end on. But yeah, no, I agree with that. I think there's definitely a lot of people that go on there, share their journeys with, weight loss, weight gain, coming into themselves, feeling better in their body, who they are as a person, not kind of, I suppose, signing up to the expectations that were consistently given by society. It's like, you're too skinny, you're too fat, you're too tall, you're too this. It's just like,
or you could just end up on the weird end of the TikTok where I always land on, like, taste the biscuit.
Give it to me. Show it to me, Rachel. Show it to me. Show me to me. Yeah. Like, oh, it's so good.
Well, this was a journey.
Yeah, I agree.
I really enjoyed this talk.
So
and I am actually really looking forward to seeing where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Like, what is the next topic?
It could be anything, like with us, to be fair.
It could be anything. To be honest, we really stayed in our lanes.
Yeah.
Talked about trauma, so we'll see what's next. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Once again, I am Jake.
I am Jen.
And thank you for joining in on the JJ Unplugged show.
Beep, 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 beep.
Boo! Okay, bye.